Hello, my name is Mary Cole with Good Story Company. Today I want to talk about chapter book, chapter length. Now, the word chapter factors twice in the description of what I'm going to be talking about today, and it is very, very important for this very specific niche of writing for young readers. So chapter books, we have board books for the very young readers. We have picture books, which are, these landscape or portrait, fully illustrated books intended for readers 3 to 5, sometimes 5 to 7. Then we have early readers. Format completely changes. Also illustrated, but tiny, skinny books, teeny, tiny spines, usually with a licensed property or something that the house issues an endless series of. And these are really meant for newly emergent readers. The language is actually simpler than you'll find in picture books. And the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is the topic of this video, early readers are a world of their own. And then we have chapter books. So the real difference between early readers and chapter books is that in early readers, we're dealing with very strict language usage, Lexile scores. A lot of attention is being paid to sort of sentence length, complexity of language. These also come in steps. So you have like your 0 or your 1 all the way up to 5, or however the publisher does it, which is how kids sort of gain reading competency. Then chapter books, once again, become a little bit more open-ended. And these are the books that are maybe like 64 to 128 pages, spot illustrations throughout, usually black and white, and they look like miniature novels. And the way that they're differentiated from middle grade, which is the next step up in terms of novels that can be, hundreds of pages, is chapter books really target this kind of 7 to 9 age bracket, although that can vary widely depending on the reading acumen that the child has. Some kids are really late to coming to chapter books and feeling independent and, able to read something that seems that long and that challenging. And other kids are really, really early readers. And so they get to chapter books before some of their peers. So the age range is just something to keep in mind. What really makes chapter books unique, as separate from middle grade and as separate from early readers, is in the name, they feature chapters and they tell a story that has more of an arc for the character, more of an arc for the plot. The story is broken down into scenes and chapters. They run probably up to about 10,000 words is what I always recommend, but you see a lot of them kind of on the lower end. They deal a lot with family and friendships and kind of the development of your personality, the development of identity, things that kids are into, solving easy mysteries around the neighborhood, that sort of thing. And the hallmark, again, of that reading experience is that you get to have these easy wins for readers who are newly emerging into their reading independence, and that's those chapters. So I can read a chapter. I read a whole chapter. You get to be so proud of yourself. You get to have an easy win and consistent wins throughout the course of reading the book. You can put a bookmark in if you get tired from reading, because remember, we take our reading ability for granted a lot of the time, but these are kids that are just coming to the reading skill. So you can put a bookmark in, you can feel very accomplished. There are natural beats and pauses in the stories that kids can sort of stop at, or, take a pause and reflect back on the story and try to kind of keep the story together in their heads. And so the experience of reading a chapter book really needs to play into how you write chapter books if you're writing for this audience. And that includes keeping an eye on chapter length. Now, I would say that an appropriate length for chapter book, depending on your total project length, is right around 500, 600, 700 words. That way, if you have a 7,000 word chapter book manuscript, you can have maybe 10 to 15 chapters, which I say is absolutely appropriate for the category. It's completely within the range of normal. And that way you're giving your reader those little wins that they really, really want and crave Even if they don't know that they want to crave them, it's something to build into the rhythm of the chapter book storytelling practice. It's something to build into your manuscript. And it's very, very noticeable to me when I read an aspiring chapter book manuscript when either chapters are too short, not enough really happens. The chapters do have to be individual units of story where either progress is made on the character front or on the story front, the plot front, or we have these much longer chapters that are about 1,500 words. Well, if you're coming from an early reader where the entire thing was 1,500 words and you're going to that in a chapter for a chapter book, that may be a bridge too far for some of these emergent readers. So I would really keep the chapter lengths to reasonable minimum of about 500 to 700 words. And it's definitely a unique market. It's a smaller market. It's tougher to debut in chapter book because, you know, these tend to be series. Publishers only do a couple of series per imprint on their lists. It's not as robust as kind of the picture book market on the one hand, or middle grade, which is above chapter book. But if you feel inspired to write for this very specific audience, just something to keep in mind is the chapter book chapter length. This has been Mary Cole with Good Story Company, and here's to a good story.